Dan Blanton, what's
Hello.
happening, brother?
Not a whole lot.
Good to have you here, man. Hey,
happy to
cheers,
finally
brother.
Get here. Cheers.
Cheers. Good to see you again.
You too. It's took a little while to.
Hey,
to
man, we
get
got
in
you
here.
on the schedule.
Had some reschedules, and appreciate you having me in.
Dan, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you, yourself, what you do, kind of currently?
Yeah. So my name's Dan Blanton. I own and operate a general contracting roofing company in Central Ohio here. Oh, already backing away from the mic. Yeah, I own and operate a general contracting and roofing company here in Central Ohio. I had to have a lot of people tell me, especially customers, like, hey, you're not who I expected. Maybe younger, or
How old are you now, Dan?
30.
Wow.
Just finally turned 30. But I think really we are a sales and marketing company that just so happens to do roofing and other exterior remodeling projects. But what it really comes down to is the sales and marketing part of it, and relationship building with our customers and so on and so forth. So I've always been in sales. Got into sales, I don't know, early 20s. Started in lawn care sales, and then ran into you, and that sent me down the path that I'm on now. But yeah, sales was always kind of my calling, I felt like. So
You also own and operate the Ohio Roofing Alliance, right?
yeah, it's trying to get that off the ground. Man, that's tricky.
It's hard to start organizations from scratch, man.
It is. It's hard to get so many people, that are part of the industry on board, to a singular vision. Everybody has their opinions and their ideas and want to do this and that with it. I started that as just more so of a, consumer trust type thing, because in the state of Ohio, there's no licensing for roofing companies, oddly enough.
Yeah, that's one of the odder things about that particular industry. There's license for being a plumber. There's license for HVAC. I mean, basically, there's license for cutting hair. But
Right.
if you're going to get on top of someone's
for a
house
roof, yeah.
and rip off, 20,000 pounds worth of shingles and replace that,
Yeah.
no big deal. Just sure, you're good enough to go.
Yeah, and I think, in my opinion, it's the biggest downfall of our industry, because, I mean, literally anyone can tomorrow just fire up a roofing company and say, hey, I know what I'm doing, and they've never been on a roof. They don't know. And, there's guys, obviously, the entry, the barrier to entry is essentially non-existent. So back to the Ohio Roofing Alliance thing, that was, kind of my goal with it was, okay, if the state is not going to police it, maybe we can to some sort. I mean, you've got the Better Business Bureau and guys like that,
Which is a for-profit organization.
Exactly,
It's not a government or state or nonprofit.
give us your
business.
$500 and we'll give you an A+ rating. And it's, there's really, in my opinion, not a whole lot of legitimacy to it. But, I wanted to put something together that, consumers could look at and trust and say, hey, if these people are a part of the Ohio Roofing Alliance, then we know we can trust them. We know that they have been in business X number of years. They're insured, they back their warranty up, and maybe, throw some other things for it into that. But of course, once I finally got it off the ground and got other people in the industry involved, it quickly took a turn to, like, there's certain bills coming through, and hey, we need to band together and lobby against this.
Gosh.
And at first I'm like, that's a good idea. And then it was just like, I don't really know if I'm up for that. And I don't know if I'm up for lobbying and meeting with senators.
All of a sudden it becomes a political thing, and you're like, I signed up to be a business owner, not a politician.
Exactly.
So those are the worst type of people, and those are the ones that you and I are trying to avoid generally in our business,
right.
not get involved in our business.
So that's, I guess, taking a little bit of a seat on the back burner for now, and let all that political and lobbying stuff die down, and then maybe hop back into it. But it's also just hard time-wise. I mean, just running the business just takes so much and so many hours out of your day. And of course, I have a 2-year-old at home and a wife, and it's like, okay, well, that's, where is my extra time, coming from? So hopefully at some point, we can get there and maybe I can have a little less involvement in the the contracting side of things, and maybe put more into that, because I think it's necessary for our industry, long term. And but yeah, we'll have to see if I can get back around to that.
Yeah. When I met you, you were like truly what I depict as like addicted to sales.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you were a young guy. I mean, gosh, it was probably almost 10 years ago now, but
2016 or 15, I think it was.
yeah. So we're going on 10 years. So, I met you and I was like, wow, this kid's like addicted to sales. And you, in my opinion, you kind of just took that addiction to sales and pushed it into roofing and then pushed it into construction. And, that's kind of just how I, view your personality, which I know you probably can echo that based on some of your experiences. But, it didn't always seem like you were going to go down this business path. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, no, definitely not. It just kind of happened. The more that you get comfortable with something, and know the ins and outs of it, and I think more than naturally you just kind of want to say, hey, well, I'm the right man to captain the ship, and I want it to be my ship, and steer that ship. So I think that's really kind of how it happened. But when I first got into sales, I mean, there were times where I'd say, "Oh man, I'd love to, start my own business." Back then it was, "Oh, I'm going to start a lawn care business," and we always get to this point where that sounds great, and yeah, I can fire up a logo and an LLC, and then it's like, okay, well, how am I going to buy the trucks and the equipment? And you tend to just kind of stay with what you're doing. But the way that everything happened with with this company and the roofing side of things, it was it was nice. I think if more people could do it like that, it just was kind of a slow burn, and learning the ins and outs, like I said, and then one thing led to another that kind of led to the point of me grabbing the reins and taking over. But I kind of experienced a lot of those. I got to see other people go through the growing pains of a new business and a new industry, and what works, what doesn't, what do we need to focus on, what do we not. And I was able to kind of I was a part of it, but I wasn't again manning the ship, so to speak. So once things happened and that opportunity arose, it made sense, and I had a lot of experience under my belt to just kind of be able to, it was a pretty seamless thing once it did take place, which we can get into how that took place if you'd like. But
yeah, well, I'd like to go back to the beginning, man. So like, you're in school, and I don't think you and I have ever talked about like college much at all. I've talked about college plenty on this podcast about how it can help certain people, but I certainly don't think it's a necessity. I don't know if you have any history doing the college experience at all.
I don't.
So like, what's life like in high school, and how are you trying to navigate this ship of like what's going to happen next? Because you're 30, you have a business, it's growing, you have multiple businesses. I know you have different businesses, you have Airbnb and things like that in the real estate industry. So kind of just paint this picture. How does it get to here from, hey, I don't even know if you ever planned to go in college.
No. I would say most people, which I'll get to the story, but, I probably shouldn't be here, and I don't think most people are. I was raised by a single mother, she worked two jobs, she wasn't around a whole lot, tried her best. But I didn't really ever have, certainly didn't have, the best relationship with my mom. My dad wasn't around. She was in and out of relationships, and, different guys trying to, step in and be stepdad and whatnot. And so I didn't really have any foundation or structure growing up. I did luckily have people that babysat me, that ended up, I refer to them as my grandparents now, that kind of took me under their wing at certain points when, things got tough with my mom and I's living situation. And they really, I credit them with everything. They really gave me that foundation and grounding that I needed, although I kind of strayed from that at some point. But, I went from, we probably moved 15 times, my mom and I switched back and forth schools. I don't know how many times. And, that was pretty tough. And I did have some grounding with my grandparents. But, and they were very strict. My grandpa's, diehard Catholic, and, he was very strict, and that was, new to me as well. And eventually I kind of rebelled from that. And, they wanted me home when it was dark, and, my friends are still out, hanging out. And, especially in high school, it's like, everybody's going to the football game Friday night and drinking afterwards or whatever. And, I wasn't able to do that. So, I rebelled hard when I was probably 16. I think I moved out and moved into one of my buddy's basements when I was like 16. And as I mentioned prior, my dad was not around. And so I met him for the first time when I was 16. And I knew that he existed, but my mom was never a fan of him.
She kind of tried to help keep him.
Yeah, she didn't want me. She didn't want me around him for whatever. Which, I'm sure he had his issues when he was younger, and maybe that was why. But so I meet my dad when I'm 16, and I have a brother, half brother, couple half brothers, and a half sister, and it's like, oh my God, my dad, this is so cool, and we hit it off and everything, and next thing I know, I'm moving in with him like 2 weeks after I meet him, and I got a big brother, and I think he's like, I was a single child growing up, so it's like, oh man, this, I have a big brother I can hang out with.
Right,
and
it's the family experience you never had.
Yeah. Well, that, my big brother turns out was a drug addict. So, and hung out with a lot of drug addicts. And that was really never part of, I was never around things like that. And I never, anticipated doing anything. I didn't even smoke weed or anything in high school. That was like I was too scared, to be honest. I'm cool. I'm cool being sober. But, those were just some bad influences at that point. And I was working at Kroger, and I was loading a truck one night and broke my thumb, and I got prescribed some painkillers. And, my brother's like, hey, man, if you crush them up and do this and that with them, you can feel really good. And I'm like, yeah, cool, man.
It's doctor prescribed,
Yeah, it's
I'm
doctor.
just taking it a little differently.
Yeah, it's not gonna. Yeah, I'll feel good here and there. No big deal, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of just led to, a habit. Habit with painkillers, and before I knew it, I was addicted to painkillers, and then before I knew it, I didn't have enough money one day to get painkillers, and like I said, my brother, he's doing better now, but especially then, he was a heroin addict, so it was just a matter of time before he introduced me to that.
So like a perfect storm, really.
Yeah, it's like, one day I just didn't have the money, and of course, even looking back, it's like, what the heck? Like, how do you say yes to that? But in the moment, and
well, you're also what, 17, 16?
Yeah, I think I was probably 16, 17 at this point. So yeah, I'm just obviously not thinking straight, and it's also, it's cool. I really got sucked into this. My brother was older and his friends were older, and I was kind of the younger guy, and they kind of took me under their wing, and
almost like a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Like that happens when people like.
And I'm a smaller guy too, so it was always, they'd protect me. No one's gonna mess with little Danny and all this stuff.
That's exactly like the story that people tell when they get into gangs.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
hey, my parent wasn't around, so I have these like older guys who like show me love and respect. And it's like,
right.
Oh, I'm gonna join the gang then.
Yeah, and you may think of that happening like in the inner cities or something, but like this was rural,
Same
Ohio
human dynamics.
Exactly.
The dynamics play out over and over.
Yeah. So before I knew it, I was doing heroin, and I had a girlfriend at the time. We were high school sweethearts, and I'm sure her and her family never imagined, that either. But again, it was like one thing just led to another, and that's just what it was. So
yeah, it's kind of crazy. It seems like it was just kind of 2 steps down the stairway, and it's just like boom, boom, and
yeah. And
I think
I think a lot of people that you talk to that have this life experience, that is what happens. It happens. A football player tears his ACL and he gets prescribed painkillers, and then 3 years later he's dead. Or I have family now that I would have never imagined, but they got prescribed it, for back pain, and they're not the same. And it just so happened, and I'm thankful for it now, but it just so happened that I was 16, 17 when it happened to me. And so yeah, I mean, at the lowest point of my life, I'm delivering pizzas in a car with a busted out windshield, and I'm every like 2 or 3 pizzas I deliver, I have $20, and I stop at my dealer's house, and using drugs, and at night I'm sleeping on their couch with 13 other people in a 2-bedroom little trailer, and haven't showered in, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. And then would have been, my little brother was born in June of 2012, and I knew my mom was pregnant, but I had only seen her, I think, once during her pregnancy, because and I better backtrack. She's with a great man now, my stepdad, and he's absolutely wonderful to her and to me. And but anyway, they end up having a kid, but my little brother. But it was sometime after June. I get a call from my mom. She says, "Hey, I had Ruger, and we'd like you to come meet him." And I'm just like, how did I miss that? Like, my little brother was born, and I didn't even know. Like, he's like 4 weeks old, and I didn't even know. And that was a wake up call of like, holy crap, man! Like, I'm missing out on a lot. So and I always think of the first picture that I have holding him, and I can see in my eyes that I'm higher than a kite, and sitting there holding my little brother. But man, the first time I held him, I'm like, I got to be better. I gotta get my life together. I don't want to be dead. And I've seen in my life what the lack of role models and stuff can do, and I'm gonna be better for him. So it took me a couple months, but finally, December of 2012, I called my dad and I said, "Hey, I'd like for you to take me to rehab." And he came and picked me up, and I always remember he made me get out of the car and walk, like, I don't know, it was the other side of town, that where I was at, and he came and picked me up, but he made me walk quite a ways because he said I stunk so bad, because I don't know, I probably hadn't showered in 3 months. So yeah, that next morning I woke up and went to rehab, and man, I took it just as serious as I could. I still to this day I've never relapsed. It was just kind of like that day. It was literally shutting that chapter on my life. And obviously it didn't happen overnight. Back then it was meetings and counseling and things of that nature. And yeah, in rehab, I met a guy that was doing lawn sales, and he said, "Hey, you should come try this out." And of course, I get into this office, and it's me and a bunch of other ex-drug addicts. Some not really as much of an ex, but still using. And it was like, oh man, I can make $1,000 a week. And,
oh gosh, yeah.
And that was not good for a lot of people. A lot of the people in that office.
I mean, they were taking uppers and doing sales and making money. I mean, it's like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of ex-addicts get into sales, and there's a reason for that. But I never looked back. It was I was top salesman right off the bat, and I had aspirations for managing the office and all that stuff, and recruiting, and helping other people, like seeing people that had maybe come from, the same history that I had, and hey, look, changed my life, maybe it can change yours too. And, most of that failed, just because it's hard, man. It's, I don't know what the statistics are. I don't know if you want to look those up, but how many
people relapse?
Addicts just don't make it out. It's I've seen many. I think most of the people that I can think of back from that time in my life, I maybe like 1 or 2 are doing better, and not still using or still relapsing or in jail, or a lot of them dead. Yeah. It just doesn't happen for a lot of people. But I had my why which was my little brother. I think if he wasn't born, I wouldn't have had that motivation to get out, I don't think. And I mean, it was progressively getting worse. I mean, I OD'd, shortly before I went to rehab, and was really starting to get involved with the wrong people, and it's a crazy, crazy lifestyle. Even to think back of now, that I did that. And, most people that meet me nowadays go, man, there's no way. I don't obviously tell everybody that, which a lot of people are going to know now if they watch this. But,
well, you have been very open about it every time that, I've heard you're not shy about talking about it, which I think is a really bold thing to do and to be. I mean,
I'm confident that, the man I am today, that, I would have never guessed. A lot of, I feel like ex-addicts, even if you, have maybe put most of it behind you, maybe haven't put it all behind you, and, you still have addict tendencies, and maybe you're still doing things that you shouldn't. And I literally put all of that behind me. I know I tell people I changed the music I listened to, I changed the way I dressed, I changed everybody that I hung out with, and that's what it takes. I mean, you have to die and essentially be reborn again, and that's the way I looked at it. I mean, it was the music, I think back, the music I was listening to was like a huge, it played a huge part in me just doing that stuff. I was listening to music, I was just listening to, like, I remember back then, like Chief Keef and stuff.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say like some Kurt Cobain, just like living that grunge lifestyle.
Well, yeah, that might have been, that might have done it too. But yeah, this was just like, robbing, stealing, and, all that. I'm still I still say to this day, I mean, no matter what you're doing, that's not that stuff isn't good for you. No matter what you're putting into your brain and listening to and watching, and it's going to affect you at some point. And it affected me big time back then. But so yeah, I mean, I changed people, places, and things, and closed that chapter, and that's again got me into sales, and yeah, that kind of became my new addiction. And I think even it kind of is still today. It's. You get that sale, you get that next big project, and, it's whether you're an addict or not, you feel that kind of rush of like, oh man, it's, you land a big account, or, whatever it is, that's life, man. It's, you win a scratch off lottery ticket, you feel great, you close a big deal at work, whatever it is, you just, you keep kind of chasing that. So yeah, I mean, I think that was my big, attraction to sales, and kind of why, why I was so good at it and so interested in it. And, I definitely credit, just this, the sales, lifestyle and industry a lot to being able to, turn my life around and kind of direct my energy and focus elsewhere. And that became sales and business.
I mean, you said it yourself, a lot of addicts will trade one thing for another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes it's just not like a good trade. It's just like a linear trade,
Yeah. I'm gonna trade this drug for that drug.
Yeah. I mean, how many, ex drinkers or ex, addicts do you know that just like either do tons of caffeine or tons of cigarettes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
If
you ever see somebody like who is an ex drinker, but they're out, they'll just be like pounding like caffeine or like sodas or whatever. I mean, I see that all the time, and kudos to them that they're able to get away from the more harmful thing, but it's just, it's very hard.
Yeah.
And there's also certainly a genetic component. I don't know if you've ever done much research on this or had any like testing done, but I think, addiction runs in my family. I don't know if you think it runs in your family.
Yeah, I mean, that back to my mom wanting to keep me away from my dad. That's what I was always told, and he kind of told me too. He had some drug issues in his younger days, and so then he had it. I had it. My brother had it. My older half brother has it. So yeah, I think it's definitely there's got to be some sort of, because I never even knew they existed. Mm-hmm. Of course, once it's like as soon as I did, I started down that track. So I don't know if that's more genetics or environment, but I'm sure it's a combination of both. And maybe had I never met them, maybe I still would have at some point. Who knows? But life takes you on crazy journeys, and looking back, I mean, it's made me who I am today. And it, I grew up a lot from it, and I think a lot of people, because 2012, that would have made me 21, right? Yeah. Well. Yeah, something like that. so as soon as I got clean, it was like I put the partying and all, you know what I mean? A lot of people are wasting their early 20s still at the bar every night and on the weekends. And I just almost immediately was like, I've experienced that and much more. So, I'm putting that behind me, and I'm just, I'm focused on business and making money and, trying to set up a successful life for myself. So, I think think those experiences, for that. So
I think that it's important you tell a story like that because of where you are now. I mean, there's people who are probably going through that or know people who've gone through that. And, sometimes it's sort of hard to see the forest through the trees, right? When you're dealing with someone who's in that kind of mind state and they have to help themselves, right? I'm sure you've seen this so many times
100%.
where it's like, it's right there in front of you. But they just can't help themselves. And
I mean, I personally, a lot of my friends from back then, I would try to help, and because they would see me and like, oh man, like I can lean on you, I can call you for help, and I always would. But again, I can maybe count one or two that actually ended up, getting out of it too. Yeah, you have to want it for yourself 100%. That's no one, there's no amount of jail time or nearly dying or your friends dying around you or watching your mom or dad cry or, because you robbed them or something. I mean, none of that's going to do anything until you sit down and, like I said, you find your why, and it's a strong enough one to make sure that, you never want to do that again. I mean, shoot, I still used, nicotine, all the way through until about a year ago. I stopped, any sort of nicotine. And, my why was, my son was born. And you really start to put into perspective, like, man, I don't want to be dead, when I'm 50 and, he's graduating high school, I want to live a long life. And so that right there was my why that was strong enough. I'd never had a why strong enough before. I'd try to quit. But, you gotta, when that why comes, you gotta grab it and run with it.
Is that how you think you got out? Because you say, Ruger's born. Sounds like that's your little brother.
Yeah.
And sounds like it wasn't instant, but it was there.
It was there, yeah. I mean, it's hard to do instant, It's like no one can just, the stuff I was doing, you really can't just quit cold turkey. I mean, I'm pretty sure it can like literally kill you or, just drive you insane and make you want to kill yourself or something. Yeah, it wasn't instant, but it was enough to kind of get my gears turning towards, okay, what's my plan here? Maybe I call rehab or, I remember, I think I called, some people in my family and kind of opened up about what had been going on, which, that's huge right there.
Yeah.
Because I was hiding it from them.
Yeah.
I'm sure they knew something was going on, but,
isn't that the first step, admission?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you gotta, now you have accountability, like, hey, this is what I'm doing and I want to change, and it's like, okay, well, now I can't hide it from you. Now if I don't show up for, Christmas or Easter or whatever, why. I can't make up, the lies of her. When I call and ask you for $20 because, I don't know, I'm out of gas, No, it's actually because, I want to do this, do something bad with it. So yeah, that's a big step. But yeah, once he was born, it was, a smack in the face of just, that reason why. And, man, he was just my best man in my wedding.
Yeah.
He's 11 years old now.
Gave a hell of a best man speech.
He did. That was, man, he's a smart kid. But, and I think about that too, I told him that at my wedding, how important he was to me and, how I literally would not probably be standing here today if it wasn't for you. And he's 11, so he doesn't get it. But one of these days, I'm going to be able to tell him really what happened, and I'm sure that'll be, a cool, conversation to have with him. And yeah, I mean, he's always been more than a little brother to me. As my parents are obviously a little older. There's a 20 what would that be? 20 some year difference, 21 year difference between myself and my little brother. So,
yeah.
I was always more of not really a dad, but more than a brother. You know what I mean? Your brother you kind of hang out with,
Yeah.
and it was more of a mentor role and coaching him in basketball and stuff like that. And that then that set me up for fatherhood. So I always knew I wanted to be a dad and a good one, and I got to kind of taste some of that, with that 20-year gap between my little brother and I, and then I have my son, and I feel like I'm pretty well prepared for it, although it's much different.
Yeah.
Much different.
You got to skip all the unenjoyable parts. You got to ship him back when his diaper was dirty and just go play basketball with him.
Yeah, I got to play basketball, and hang out with him on the weekends, and now it's full time, so it's definitely a little different, but certainly all those life experiences you take in to hopefully set you up for the next season of life. So
I think you said something really important here. You said find your why. You said that's kind of how you got out of that. That's what you've seen other people kind of struggling with this situation, how they were able to make their way out of it. And I think that parallels to business very easily, because the businesses that I see have the most success, they're able to find that why. And the first podcast and second podcast, both guests brought that up. They're like, you have to have a why for your business. Like, if your why is I want to make money, like, yes, that helps, that works, but eventually, something's gonna break. Like, you're either gonna get the money and be like, oh, okay, like, that didn't fix it, or the person who does have a why is just gonna be out there out competing you.
That's true.
What was the why for those other people that you kind of helped coach through that? Do you recall any of their situations that?
Yeah, I mean,
because obviously you just said a lot of people never made it out.
Yeah, I think similarly, one guy I can think of, he had a kid and wanted to be better for him.
You're good. We'll give it a little love. He had a kid, wanted to be a little better.
Yeah, he had a kid and wanted to be better for him, and but yeah, like I said, I mean, thinking off the top of I think both kind of the people I can think of had kids, and I think when you're living also for someone else who is going to rely on you every second of the day, that's a pretty strong why. Sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, as a business owner, it's sometimes, yes, like my business is changing the lives of people, but sometimes it's a simple, like for us here at Mix Solutions, like my why is, yes, I want to help our brands. Our business motto is building relationships and delivering results. We want to build strong relationships. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
Yes, we want to build relationships with our brands and our partners. We want to do everything right by them, but relationships is also internal with your people, right? Like,
yeah, I think that's what it's all about.
You need to know that the people you're doing business with, and really firmly believe, like, I can help this person make their life better. And I certainly don't think I've always been able to do that with every person that worked at our company, but I hope you and I working together, you'd go, yeah, I think he was actually legitimately trying to like make my life better, make me better, And some people don't want to hear that. Like, they just want to come into the office, do their thing, and leave. Right. I get that. Like, some people are like, I'm just trying to do my job. But the people like you who get it, they go, yeah, like, I actually can be better. And some of the stuff that Alex is kicking me may have an impact. I mean, that's the point of this podcast. We want to help people learn. We want to help from stories that I have, stories like people you have. And
I mean, you were a huge mentor for me, which, we can get into, exterior and the beginning days of that and kind of how everything happened. But, I mean, it was always evident to me that, you weren't part of exterior for roofing. I'd say of everyone that was involved, you were the least interested in roofing. But you were definitely interested in building all of us to be better, and in turn, that's what's that? Rising tides, raise all ships.
That's
or
right, raise all boats. Yeah, and so we'll let you kind of finish off the story. So you get clean. Mm-hmm. You're around 21, 22, and you kind of trade into that sales position, selling lawn care.
Yep, get into selling lawn care, and really took that seriously, and gave me something to really latch onto, and again, kind of like we said, trade one addiction for another. So yeah, I did that. Did that for a while. And
You're doing door-to-door sales.
Doing door-to-door sales. Yep, knocking on people's doors. Which
Were you going solo or teams of two, or what was the story?
yeah, I mean, we would hop all in a van and drive out to a neighborhood and hop out, 10 deep.
Just
and
chaos.
man, that teaches you a lot.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you get so many doors slammed in your face, and man, so many, you're commission based 100%, which puts a whole nother stress on you, like
You're also an independent contractor. There's no health insurance. There's no 401k, none of that. Like, you eat what you kill.
That is 100% true. And I mean, now, I because we have some people that we kind of hire or pay similarly, commission based. And I say, like, a lot of people are scared of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, this is, as a business owner, you're commission based. You know what I mean?
100%.
You think you can be a business owner? You want to own a business someday? Well, this is how you start. Commission based. If you don't, if your business isn't successful, then you don't get paid.
Commission based, you're lucky. You don't have any expenses.
I was going to say, yeah, you're really getting the better end of the stick here. Usually commissions, depending on what you're doing, are pretty good, pretty good pay, and you don't have to deal with all the stuff of the, that the business owner, has to deal with. So, I can tell you when I first got into the, the roofing and all that, and was just commission and just selling jobs and not having to worry about, all the other stuff. I think I was certainly a lot less stressed than I am now.
So take me through that first day. They drop you in the van and you're doing door-to-door sales. I mean, that sounds like so many people out here that are probably listening's nightmare. Like, I could never do that door-to-door sales thing.
It's interesting. Like I said, a lot of doors slammed in your face. I have stories of people getting real weird, inviting you in their house and locking the door behind you. And shoot, I wouldn't even know how to guess how many doors I've knocked in my life and people I've talked to. But man, we would just make it fun. When we were selling lawn care, it really just gets, you're almost looking for that next no and knocking the next door. And so you got to kind of find ways to get your energy and keep it up and make fun with it. And so we would make up names of weeds, that people had in their lawns, and be like, hey, you got Furry Johnson in your yard, we got the right stuff to take care of that. And we did like phone sales too, so I'd always like put on a country accent and, yeah, this is Dan with the lawn care service giving you a call, and you would get more sales.
That's hilarious.
So we would kind of run these experiments almost of like, hey, if you do the country accent, I think people people just trust you more.
People think that guy can
hey, this is the local lawn guy. He lives right next door.
Yeah.
He can definitely treat my lawn.
He's been clean for 8 months. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
We swear.
Sure enough, I'm sitting in the office, kick back. I'm furthest thing from, a country boy, but yeah, we would have fun with it. But yeah, I mean, sales is that's what it is. It's eat what you kill, and you can't just be motivated by the money. That's for sure. My favorite thing is is truly the relationships with people. Even owning the business now. Yesterday one of my guys called me and he was down in Cincinnati and couldn't make it back for his contract signing with these people, and so I had to go, handle it for him. And my day had just kind of been blah at that point. I was in the office doing computer work and getting things scheduled and ordered, and it was like, oh, cool, you know what I mean? So I grab all the stuff like I'm a sales guy again, and all the brochures and material samples, and I go into their house and I can have a conversation heart to heart and face to face with these people. And I mean, that's what it's all about. I still love doing that stuff and love training people how to do it. And that keeps me going still to be able to go back to my roots and get in the house and talk to people about how we can solve their problems and hopefully, solve them better than the next guy can. Yeah,
they say a lot of the great business partnerships throughout history have been one person who's kind of the engineer, the operator, and then one person who's kind of the salesperson.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
like the founders of Google, Sergey and Larry, that's like, boom, there's the dynamic right there. The prime example of it. I think Oracle was a similar one there, where you have a person who knows how to operate, then you have a person who's like, I'm going to go out and I know how to sell it.
Yeah.
And you would be modest, but you are definitely the best door-to-door salesman that I've ever seen.
Appreciate that.
So maybe talk to us about, how that occurs. Because, look, if you are wanting to get out of your comfort zone, door-to-door sales is about as far out of the comfort zone as you could possibly get. And I think that you can learn so much about business, so much about yourself, so much about life, so much about people.
Problem solving. And
Whether it's door-to-door or, like you said, call center. I know everybody thinks that's an ugly job, but it's like, hey, there's some guys with ugly jobs who make $400,000 a year, And it's funny because a lot of people are like, I would do anything to make $400,000 a year. And I'm like, okay, go take a sales job.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Well, no, I wouldn't do that. It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on,
I need a guaranteed salary. I need this and
it's
that.
It's like, okay, I'd shovel poop for $400,000. It's like, okay, well, how about you walk around a neighborhood and talk to people?
Right.
Well, that's crazy. It's like, that's not crazy. That happens every single day in every single city.
I mean, a lot of the most successful people I know, it's all tied back to sales somehow.
Mm-hmm.
This is sales. And so I think a lot of it just gets overcomplicated. I mean, I think at the end of the day, some people are salespeople and some people aren't. Some people are extremely personable. Some people aren't. Some people can sit on a podcast and talk. Some people can't.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely people who are natural. I would say that it's like anything. It's like a sport. Like if you and I both just start playing Frisbee golf, like one of us is going to naturally take to it a little bit quicker.
Right.
That said, I think that everyone can learn the skill. There is a skill to it. But we've all met that person who just like has that crazy amount of charisma where every time you see him, they're like, oh, Dan, so great to see you. And you're smiling. You're like, oh my gosh, like it's so cool that he's my friend, And
that person's just making you feel good and you want to listen to them and you want to talk to
that
them.
Guy or gal. And you're like, wow, that's just natural. And it probably is natural for them. But I do think there are plenty of things that can be learned and anyone can take that into any situation. So sorry to...
No, you're fine. Yeah, I think you have to have, a baseline, social skills.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's some people you're just not athletic. You just, no matter how many times you shoot a basketball, like it's just going to look bad every time.
There are definitely people who have, issues with social situations.
and same thing with,
kind of that thing.
For sure. But I think when it comes to, to sales, I mean, I would listen to Grant Cardone and they'd say, oh yeah, it's like kind of the psychological aspect of it, and don't stop until you get 3 no's. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I ever really took that too seriously. I'm sure I absorbed some of it, but at the end of the day, it's just talking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really want to do all. I even to this day, I resist giving my guys scripts to go to the door with because they're just going to go and they're going to go up and they're going to sound like a robot. Oh, here I am. I can do this. I can do that. No one wants to, as soon as you see that, you as the consumer, you kind of shut down. Versus if you can just be, you essentially just need the knowledge, you need to know what you're selling or what you're talking about. I tell people, what do you have that's your most prized possession? It's maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's a gun or I know a guy, he told me, I love I forget what kind of gun he had, but he loved it and he knew the ins and outs of it and what I don't know a whole lot about guns, but he knew what kind of bullet it took and how to clean it and break it down and put it back together. And I'm like, okay, so if you really needed to sell that thing, you'd be able to sit down with somebody and you'd show them all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, if you're going to sell a roof or a lawn care or whatever kind of pharmaceuticals, whatever sale you're doing, it all starts with, believing in and knowing, the ins and outs of the product that you're selling. And then at that point, it's just sitting down and talking to your customer and making sure it fits their needs. And if it doesn't, maybe can you pivot somewhere, that does fit their need, or there's times where you just don't, and I'm not going to sit there and beat myself up and have this person hating me at the end of the day because I didn't fit their, whatever I'm doing doesn't work for them. So, hey, have a great day and here's my card. And, if something ever changes, let me know. But, I think just kind of that approach to it, just more of kind of the laid back. I'm not going to sit here and tell you have to get 3 no's before you walk away, or you have to say this, and that in this order, and order, like, I'm sure that stuff works, if you implement it properly. But I think at the end of the day, it more comes down to just training in terms of, hey, this is what we do, and, getting you to believe in it and buy into it. And some people don't, some people, they don't, buy into the product that you have, or whatever it may be. And it's probably going to be a little harder for them to sell it, because if you don't believe in it, it's going to be hard to sell. That's like what we do nowadays. Like, even if it costs more or whatever, I want to make sure we're putting on the best products, and we have the best workmanship and oversight. Because if I don't believe deep down inside that we are literally giving you the best thing that we can, then I'm going to start, getting off track too. Like, oh man, I'm telling you that we're giving you the best roof and that we can, but little do you know, we're actually, doing X, Y, Z and cutting corners to save cost. And I'm not interested in any of that. I truly want to give you the best of the best, and be the best guy standing behind it for you. So
there's so much to be said about just having confidence in yourself and in confidence in what you're selling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big part of it.
This goes for like dating too, like you're just confident in yourself when you go into like the dating situations.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes such a difference, you know, if you're clamming up, you can be a 10, but if you're like clamming up, people are going to be like, well, what's going on? There's something that I don't know about this person that like, I don't like.
People want to be around confident people.
Absolutely.
They just, they're decision makers, and they're not, they're sure of themselves, not too sure of themselves, but, confidence is one of those characteristics that I think is, at least in social situations, is, again, there's a line where you're too confident and you start to rub people the wrong way. But, I think that's certainly an important part of sales too, is confident in yourself and confident in, it's like with my sales guys, I want them to be able to make decisions there. I want to make sure because if you're sitting in front of a customer and they're like, okay, well, what about this? What about this product? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I got to call my manager.
Call the manager, the classic technique.
Yeah. It's like, okay, but so you don't know, you know what I mean? You don't know, you can't make that decision. You're not aware, you're not knowledgeable in this. And that can start, down the hill of, well, they're probably going to explore other options now. So, and I struggle with that a little bit, in terms of giving my guys, full reign. Like, some of them right now are trying to, do their own estimates. And it's like, on one side, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great, because I want you to have that confidence and I want you to know how to do this. But at the same time, I'm like, oh man, if they mess something up or they miss something, that's going to be going to be an expensive fix and it's an expensive mistake. And, so, there's obviously a balance there too. But yeah, just giving them, again, in sales, giving people the tools to know what they're doing and make decisions on the fly and know what's best for the customer, best for the company. Those are all the tools needed to be a successful salesperson.
Yeah. And there's actually an interesting physiological thing that happens. And this is probably totally true with like the best salespeople, is when you get a win, right? You get a yes in the sales, you get that little dopamine hit. And Steve, you can pull this up. They find that fighters who win the fight get like a testosterone surge.
Yeah.
So it's like a self-reinforcing cycle that like you get the win, you get the dopamine hit, you get a testosterone surge, you're a winner, you're more confident in yourself.
100%.
And then you go out and you do it. You're like, next person I talk to, I'm going to sell them, right? And, well,
it's like sales generally, they kind of come in waves too. One of my guys was out the other day. He's like, man, I've talked to like 30 people and everyone's saying no and they're slamming doors in my face. I'm like, you just got to get that one yes, man. As soon as you get that one yes, then you got to keep going after that, because trust me, you'll get 2 or 3 or 4 more, because subconsciously you get into this thing of just, more confident. And, whatever it may be.
You can go to
Get
the
the
one that I
testosterone
just saw.
pumping.
It said that the loser of a fight sees a 10 to 15% drop in their testosterone.
Wow.
Yeah. In one study, the top quartile in the dominance hierarchy had significantly higher testosterone levels than other 3/4. And this is kind of like what they attribute to, like, they say like streaky shooters.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, he's a streaky player.
Yeah.
It's like they get rolling, they get real confident. They literally have these like physiological, psychological reinforcing factors that are like, you're the man, you're the best. And then when it like you strike out or you start missing threes,
doubt
like,
starts creeping
like,
in.
I may not be the best,
Oh, it's 100%. I mean,
and that's all in that confidence.
It's all confidence and self-doubt, and whichever side you're gonna sit on is, it can be just like in sales. I mean, I've been in it too, where you're losing. Someone's beating you, someone's selling more than you, or you get no after no after no, or you lose a couple jobs that you just were for sure you were going to close down. And I've still to this day, even, with the position I'm in, I can be like, oh man, am I cut out for this? Am I actually as good? Am I getting rusty? I think of that a lot nowadays with sales, because my guys give me crap, like I don't, I'm not involved in the sales process as much as I used to be, so they'll be like, oh yeah, have you ever sold this much, Dan? And kind of and I sit there and think, man, I don't know. Could I? Could I still do this?
Well, one thing that's probably going to be helpful for you is something that Christian said yesterday. So Christian, he's a full-time stock trader, right?
Yeah.
So he said,
this is the guy that...
Yeah. You ended up doing his roof. It's just like crazy small world.
Super
just
small
to show
world.
Dan's like prowess in the greater central Ohio roofing world. He's like, yeah, I know that guy did his roof. I was like, what?
It was literally like the day before, too.
Crazy small world.
It's weird how that works.
So Christian goes, I have all these students who say, this trade failed. What did I do wrong, Christian? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, it didn't go my way, so clearly I did something wrong. And he's like, so you're saying that in order to like trade correctly, you need to hit 100% success rate?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no. And he's like, but that's what you just said. Because it didn't work, you must have done something wrong. And he's like, look, you can do everything right and it not work out. And that's absolutely the mentality that you have to have when you do door-to-door sales.
Yeah.
Like, I can do everything totally right and it not work out. And that was something that when I was doing door-to-door sales, I was not good at. Like, I would have been much better at door-to-door sales if I like was just emotionless. I would like knock a door and it would
get that one no.
It would be a perfect case. It would be absolutely the perfect situation. Like, I'm going to be able to get this roof replaced for this person. It's probably not going to cost them anything. Their insurance company will pay the full cost of this. And they're just like, nope, we're not interested. And they shut the door.
And
you're
like, looking at it like, half your roof's missing.
I'm like, yeah, half your roof. You have a tarp on your roof. Like, we don't need any help. I'm like, you literally have a sign
just
on
talk
your
to
roof
me, please.
that says you need help.
Yeah.
And you're like, what did I do wrong there? And now being a little older, having heard, Christian in his sense, it's like, you could have done everything right there, but like...
That's what I tell my guys. I'm like, some of these people, you could literally knock on their door as Publishers Clearinghouse with $1 million check and they'd shut the door in your face.
They'd be like, I don't need it.
I don't need it. And you'd be like, what? I have $1 million for you.
To Publishers Clearinghouse.
It probably does. Get off my lawn.
What we know about door knocking, I'm sure that happens.
That takes me back. I always think, it was a sermon I heard in church when I was younger, but the preacher was just talking about baseball, and he's like, literally... Pete Rose, I think, hit a little over 300 for his entire career. That means he only got a hit like 3 out of every 10 times that he was at bat. He failed 70% of the time and is still one of the greatest hitters ever. I think he is the greatest hitter ever. So I always think of that, like, man, that's baseball, like hardest, in my opinion, probably the hardest sport there is, mentally especially. And these guys get into slumps and everything else. And man, if you're hitting the ball 3 out of every 10 times, you're only successful 30% of the time, you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
You apply that same thing to life, and you got to be, well, if you're only successful 30% of the time, you probably need to make sure that 30%'s, pretty an important 30%. But yeah, I mean, failure, whether it be sales or life is part of it.
It's definitely part of it, man.
I would hate to be successful in at every little thing, because you would just get tired of it. You'd get tired of it. Yeah, well, I think you'd get tired of it. Because I've caught there's been, I'm sure everybody, a lot of people have, you get in these points, man, everything's going great. You know what I mean? And then something happens and but makes you appreciate, that next peak. And, the valleys are part of it. You gotta have some valleys here and there. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I would take a life that was just pure bliss, pure happiness, pure greatness. First of all, I don't know if that exists, but I feel like you'd get just boring, and
Well,
you just wouldn't appreciate it.
That's how the jokes about heaven go, right?
Yeah,
You know, do they have golf in heaven? Like,
No, because
well,
hit it off the fairway, and
yeah, right.
everything's perfect, right?
Yeah. So you get into door-to-door sales with the lawn care business. You're figuring that out, but you eventually transition to construction.
Yeah. So would have been 2016, I believe.
And my advice to people who are good at sales is sell the most expensive thing that you possibly can.
Oh, 100%.
You want to do fewer sales.
I was selling, $200 like lawn packages back then, and making like $50 a sale.
Would
or
you
something.
even get like a renewal? Or
no.
Like
it
a
was
residual?
one time. That's it. One time and you're done.
Or,
and I thought I was King Tut back then too. So.
Or if you're selling, you want residuals.
Yes.
Sell
residuals and high ticket items, 100%.
Yep. So be wary of your insurance salesman, your financial advisor. Those are, salespeople wearing suits.
Yeah. And that's a thing.
They may have a license, but
that's what I look for nowadays when we're recruiting new salespeople. Like, okay, you're selling like, pest control. Like, you're making
Upgrade
what per sale?
Exactly.
Okay, look at this.
Yes.
Anyway, 2016, I have, my best friend from high school or school in general that I grew up a couple doors down from. I go over to hang out with him one night, and sure enough, you and Ryan are sitting out back developing a game plan for a roofing company.
That's right.
And my first thought is they're going to need a salesperson. So I remember telling you guys, hey, when you're ready for, a salesperson, let me know. I'm pretty good at it.
Wow.
And I didn't think anything would ever come of it. But then I think Ryan, maybe a couple months later, messaged me on Instagram and wanted to meet up. And so I remember getting lunch at that Mexican restaurant and starting sales. But yes, that was, even coming from sales, that was scary. I'm a very loyal person, and certainly, I think like a lot of people, comfortability. It was like, okay, at that time I was working for Scott's Miracle Grow, a Fortune 500 company, and I had a salary plus, some commissions. I was making decent money. Had been there a while and thought I was working my way up and all that. So to give that up for, this couple guys with a dream, of starting something from the ground up, and that was scary. There's no doubt about that. But so we got into that. I started, just on nights and weekends, after I was done at Scott's, going out and knocking doors, but instead of at that time I was in their call center, so I really had gotten out of the door-to-door thing a little bit, but yeah, I found my roots back in the door-to-door thing, but this time, for roofing, and I think took off pretty quickly in that. I think I started it would have been September of 2016, and we got laid off at Scott's over the winter, and you got, a little bit of unemployment or whatever it was over the winter, and just enough to survive. And then you started back, I think, in January. And even in that short amount of time, it was like, well, I'm literally going to lose money if I go back to Scott's, because I need to be selling roofs. That's my thing. So that's how I got into the roofing thing. And
you just said something really important, and this is a great lesson for anybody who's out there listening and thinking, I'm going to transition to business owner, or I'm going to transition from X job to B job doing sales. You transition when, Dan?
When you can afford it?
Well, yeah, but when you're losing money by staying at your previous job. Gosh, I don't know how many times I've told guys that, and then they just get excited and leave their old job.
I've had so many sales guys do that. I'm like, hey, this is how I started, so take my blueprint and copy it. You're working at, you're bartending right now or bussing tables. Keep doing that. Just come see me in the evenings, and I'll show you the ropes, and I want you to do this for like 2 or 3 months before you pull the trigger. They sell one roof and then they quit, and then
excited.
2 weeks later they're like, I can't afford this, and I'm like, dude,
yeah,
I told you to take it easy. But yes, that's a big thing. Yeah, if you can, I mean, did it suck at that time? Yeah, I was working like 15-hour days, going to Scott's at early in the morning, getting off at like 5 or 6 o'clock and knocking doors till dark. Yeah, that was a lot of work, but I knew it wasn't going to be forever, and I knew that was the best way to go about it without, I mean, had I just quit Scott's and, maybe had a dry spell of a 1 to 2 weeks, I mean, my life would probably be completely different right now. I probably would have said, oh, well, that didn't work. I'm going to go back to, lawn sales. So,
But yeah, I don't think I know a person who I deem to be incredibly successful who hasn't had that period of like just grinding for like 14, 15, 16 hours.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you need to do that for like 10 years because I really don't think it's sustainable, you know?
You get burnt out.
I think that, for stretches, Elon Musk has continued to sleep in his factories, whether that be Tesla or SpaceX or Starlink or whatever it is. But when I was getting started, and this was when I was probably 22, 23, 24, like when I had far more energy than I have now, you look back and you're like, how did I even do that?
Yeah.
I would go work at Best Buy from like, 10 a.m. till like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I would work at Mixed, growing this company, from like 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. And then I would go to Soccer First and I would referee soccer from like 6 to 7:30. Sometimes I go back to Mixed after that.
Yeah.
And then I would like repeat. And then somewhere along that line, Ryan and I got connected and I started doing construction sales.
Yeah.
So like at one point I had 4 jobs and I'm like living with my parents and just like exclusively doing that. And
that's the thing, man. If you had not done that the right way, man, I just need to go back to Best Buy full time, and you're still working at Best Buy today.
And they
crazy.
want you to, like, those
100%.
people. It's not to say any of these people are bad people, but those people, they know a certain route, right? Like they're thinking, okay, well, if I work at Best Buy and I move up to manager, manager makes, $20 an hour. That's pretty good. When I started at Best Buy, I was making $9.75 with a college degree. And I got a 25-cent raise in my 1 year. And
probably wasn't a raise. That was what they call cost of living.
Gosh, certainly
not a real raise, just one that they legally have to give you.
2%, I can quickly do the math. That's approximately what that was.
Yeah.
So like those folks, they want to move up to manager. And then if you move from manager to store, like GM, now people are like, well, the GM makes 6 figures. That's like the big thing at Best Buy. The GM makes 6 figures.
But guess what? There's only one GM.
There's only one GM, and that person's there for legitimately like 12 hours. And they're doing retail hours, which are just the worst. And it's just such an unhealthy lifestyle to do retail. Mm-hmm. There's something called the retail diet where you don't eat anything during the day. You get home and you just like binge eat like as much as you can.
I think that might be the sales diet too. Well, I think I've done that today.
So, those people, they have a specific path, and they constantly were like, hey, like if you kept going at Best Buy, you could be a GM.
Stuck in the matrix.
And I never considered it, but I'm so glad that I never considered it because, I have freedom of schedule here. I have assets. I have, now there's the downside where you have to count on yourself.
Oh,
something bad could happen. You could lose it all,
and there is no, it's 5 o'clock. I'm out of here.
Well, but not to mention, a company like Best Buy, like the changing economy, you can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
You're not like a GM of one store. You can't be like, well, let's shift directions. It's like, you don't have control over that.
Right. One big thing I think of as a business owner is vacation.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I right now are trying to figure out our honeymoon, and I'm sitting there thinking, wait, how are we gonna leave the country for a week? Yeah. 3 days?
Cold
even?
Weather. Cold, that's
I mean, yeah, but even that, it's like the guilt and everything that comes with it, which is not a good place to be in, I think, as a business owner. And I think, the whole work on your business, not in it, and all that stuff is true. I'm not to that point yet. But yeah, it's like, man, if I was a manager at Best Buy making $120,000 a year, I get my 14 days a year of vacation, and you take it and you don't really have to worry about anything, and your job's there when you get back and everything's still moving. And yeah, there's a lot of things, certainly. There's some, there's the pros and cons, a lot more pros, I think, for business ownership and entrepreneurship. But yeah, it's stuck in the matrix, man, and so many people still are I have to go to a corporation and they have to feed me. I can't eat for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have that aspiration of wanting to start a business. And, I see people like on my Facebook feed all the time, like, oh, I just fired up this, this cleaning business, or, I'm going to start myself a detailing business. And, and it's hard because they're coming out of corporate America or whatever it is, where, you go to your job, you get there at this time, you leave at this time, you get this pay. You're not responsible for marketing. You're not responsible for customer acquisition. So they're trying, but they don't have really any of those skill sets. Like, okay, you're going to start a detailing business. Well, how are you going to get customers? By posting on Facebook? Like, yeah, I mean, that might work for a little bit, but long term, that's not going to work. And man, if I had more time, I'd love to just like for free, even like reach out and be like, man, I just want to help you. Like, I'm not saying you can't do it, but I just want to help you. I want to help you make sure your like logo is actually, something that people are going to, trust. And I want to I want to show you how to market yourself so you can get business outside of just posting on Facebook every Wednesday on, so-and-so city in the nose page or whatever, which, I mean, I'm sure they'll learn. Everyone starts somewhere, which is great to see them taking a leap on their own, but it sucks to see them fail because of the fact that they just didn't catch on quite quickly enough. And then it's like, back to corporate America, back to working at Best Buy, back to working at Steak and Shake or whatever it is. And for too many people, like once you try it once and you fail, that's it. It's like a lot of things, like kind of once you fail once, once you go out on the basketball court and you just realize, man, I'm just not a basketball player. Like you just don't pick up a basketball again. It's kind of the same thing for people that try to venture out on their own and get into to business. It's like, unfortunately, a lot of times you kind of have one crack at it, or otherwise other factors start playing in, and before you know it, you gave up. So, which goes back to kind of how I got into it and why I'm as lucky as I am, is because, again, I wasn't on an island. I was able to see people like you and learn from people like you, and it kind of just one thing led to another. But I can imagine I'm starting my own company from scratch. I have no marketing or sales experience or anything. I just know that I can detail a car. That's got to be tough. That's got to be really, really tough.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head that a lot of people who start a business and it fails, they will be hesitant to go again. But the interesting kind of dynamic there is most of the most successful people that we know, they started businesses, one or two, or maybe even multiple, above and beyond before they had the business that we all know about.
Yeah.
So like Elon's a unique case where like the first business he started was like pretty successful, but Richard Branson, he had like a small record store before he created the record label, before then he went into phones and jets. Mark Cuban had a company before he got into broadband.com, which he sold to Yahoo. It was like a printer fax service company. Most of these entrepreneurs that we hear about, like the gold star type people, the celebrity entrepreneurs, those people had a business that we don't know about before, which was a stepping stone, right? And like you said, the car detailing thing, it's a great stepping stone. Yeah. Because you learn so much about, well, what works, what doesn't work. And the biggest lesson that it's almost impossible to teach someone or talk to someone about until you get going is scalability. Yeah. And a car detailing business is just very difficult to scale because you are the business, right? Yeah. So then once you have to hire person number two, it's like, okay, well, geez, what do I have to charge to pay for this person? How many like leads do I need to get? And now it starts to become a
pricing
business,
yourself out of it,
not a side hustle any longer. And you're like, oh, okay, this is why.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people like, maybe they fail and don't ever try again because they're just depleted. I think just economically, it's like, I have to pay my bills. I have to survive, and it's, you tried it once and almost went bankrupt, and it's like trying that again. But yeah, I mean, certainly I'm sure the majority of successful people that are, business owners now, I mean, something failed along the way. I mean, I think even before I really even got into this stuff, I had business ideas and whatnot that I would go after, and, they would fizzle out or not work or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, that perseverance side of it, even if the business takes off and starts working, you're going to reach a point where you can quit or things are going to tell you to quit. And that perseverance is key to being successful. Yeah, everyone's not Elon Musk with their business that it took off, and I'm sure he had his growing pains. But what was his first business? PayPal or something?
I believe he had a business prior to that that was like a geolocating map business, and I think
right at the perfect time.
I think he sold it to like
internet
Google.
boom.
No, I think he sold it to Google, like Google Maps or Yahoo Maps. I mean, Steve, you could probably fact check us on that.
Yeah.
But then he started PayPal with a group of people thereafter, and he was like one of the influential, engineers.
Yeah.
The thing that I would say to most people out there who are thinking about starting a business, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The consequences in the United States are just not that high if you fail. Like, there's so many safety nets out there. Like, do you have friends? Do you have family? Do you have relatives who will let you go sleep on their couch? In 1995, Zip2, a company that provided maps and business directories to online newspapers, 99, Zip2 was bought by Compaq for $307 million. There you go. So that's a good little come up between 95 and 99.
Sounds like he could have just he could
have
given up in terms of retired.
Certainly
at that point. $307 million.
But in the United States, there's I don't want to say no consequences, but there's almost no consequences. You know?
No, you certainly got to get out. And
if you fail, like, you can go bankrupt. You can just file for bankruptcy. It's a bummer. Don't get me wrong. It's a bummer. You got to, whenever you put an application for a credit card in, you got to say, I filed for a bankruptcy at some point. But the consequences are generally so low. What freaks people out is the societal impression of you. You're a failed business owner. So it's like, what does that mean? That means you're stupid, you know? And it's like, well, you're making a lot of weird jumps.
It's funny, the opposite ends of the spectrum. If you're a failed business owner versus, like, there's also the stigma around you're a successful business owner. Like, even though you, like, sure, on the surface, you may be, but, maybe your margins are real tight. It was just like, because I know so many people that are like, they have to be a business owner. They have to.
Their identity.
They got to figure something out. They have to own some sort of business. At the same time, it's like, well, not everybody is a business owner. You know what I mean? Like, you're making great money.
Yeah.
You're making sweet money.
You're making $400,000.
You don't have to own that. Not everybody's a captain. And trust me, maybe you don't want to, not everybody wants to be the captain. You think you do, but
make more money being the captain either.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's just funny, the opposite ends of the spectrum of, it's like, as soon as someone hears like you're a business owner, it's like, oh, that guy's got a ton of money. That guy's, driving sweet cars and doing this and that. And he's just the smartest guy in the room. And it's like, I mean, maybe.
Or you tell somebody you're an entrepreneur and they're like, so what? You're like into crypto scams or something? You're like, no, I own a real business. Like, we sell stuff on Amazon.
I don't know what it is about that entrepreneur word. That it's got a negative connotation.
So you're Amazon, you're a drop shipper. I'm like, no, we're a real business. Yeah. Like, we have 40,000 plus square feet of warehouse. We have millions of dollars of inventory. We're a real business. Why do I have to justify this to you?
Right.
Well, let's take a quick break, man, and then we'll circle back here in a second.
Good.
Check. We had
still good.
We lost an arm during that podcast.
Yeah. That.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Nice save.
All right, Dan. So, finish the story for us here. You move on to Exterior Alliance. You're selling construction, selling roofs.
Yeah, man. I look back on those days.
Circa 2016.
Yep, I look back on those days with so much nostalgia, but. I came on board with you guys, and I mean, shoot, it was just us three and a fourth at some point pretty early, and kind of figuring everything out, and it was fun because you guys were all figuring it out pretty much at the same time I was, how to talk with insurance companies and going through what products we were going to use, and so it was definitely invaluable to go through that versus, if I would have walked in the door 2 years later and, it's already established, I didn't really see, how it worked and all that. Which at the same time, probably from your guys' perspective, wasn't the greatest because I probably got, at some point got a head a little too big of like, I want to do this, myself and I know what's best and yada, yada. But
you're young, you always, that's how I probably was, 2
but man,
years earlier.
It was fun. We we were doing pretty good and making some money, and I know we won the fastest growing business award in Columbus, and I remember storm hits down in Cincinnati, and we pack up shop and move down there. And
are you guys local? Yeah, we're local. Yeah,
trust
we
me.
have a branch here in Cincinnati.
A PO box.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was, thinking back on that, like, I mean, that in itself was almost like starting a business. I hopped in a truck and went to a small town, west of Cincinnati. Actually, it was in Indiana where I started. It was like, and I remember going down there like, oh my God, what if I fail? Like, number one, these guys are going to think I'm an idiot, and how do I come back from this? And it was like, okay, 3 hours later, I had like 10, contracts under my belt, and it's like, okay, this is going to work. But yeah, we ended up, we did that for a while. I was in Cincinnati for a long time, running that branch down there, which was good and bad. I was on an island down there, which again just kind of furthered my thing of like, if I'm doing all this, kind of by myself, like, why don't I just do it? Why don't I just do it myself? And yeah, I mean, I think after some years, we just hit some growing pains, and I think business partnerships, it's hard for me to imagine like a super successful one, just because, I mean, friendships are hard, marriages are hard. Mm-hmm. Any kind of partnership like that is hard. You're going to have good times and bad. And it's like, but when you're in a marriage, at least from my perspective, it's like, I've made a promise to God, through thick and thin till death do us part. There's no through thick and thin till death do us part in business,
Yeah.
At least for most, I would say. So if things start getting, a little hairy and whatnot, I'm sure that there just comes a point of no return, and and I think, looking back, I think it would have been great, had that current, conglomerate of people, worked. And like I said, I mean, I look back on those days, I miss them, to be honest. I mean, man, it was fun. And, things have changed a lot since then. But, eventually, one partner got bought out or for whatever reason. And then, it kind of came to the point, like I said earlier in the podcast, I mean, roofing and construction and stuff just wasn't really your forte, and you had all this going on here. So I think it just made sense, it made sense. I was always kind of the one, maybe not directly from the start, but at some point I was kind of the one that had my hands in the whole operation, and, it just kind of made sense for me to take over. I think it.
Yeah. So to be clear for everybody out there, I had a business partner, myself and another individual. We started the company, I think in 2015. Dan comes on board with us in 2016, and then I think in probably 2019 or so, I bought that partner out. We had our struggles. They say that if both partners always agree, what's the point in the second partner? I think that was probably true with that one. I've learned a lot just from that experience, and I don't have any hard feelings towards that other individual. I think we actually are both doing a lot better from it.
I think absolutely.
You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about other people. It's almost like having a divorce, right? Like, yeah. And, you go, okay, well, and if you're introspective, some people will be like, the other person was an idiot and forget them, and I'm perfect, right? But I think if you're introspective enough, you can go, yeah, that didn't work. And yes, the other person had their flaws, but clearly I was also a part of that. I was 50% of that, you know? So I need to look at myself and go, well, what are the things that I can work on? And to your point, business partnerships are difficult. I've heard a cynical way of saying this is that relationships have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Yeah. And no matter what, a relationship does have an end, The end everyone wants is we die, right? Yeah. Or the business partner, like, we sold our business for, $50 million. Like, it's a happy ending, right? But those are rare instances, right? Like, so you have to be realistic. And I tell this to people, especially if they're talking about starting a business with a partner. that's a friend or a family member, or even if it's a neutral individual, like be prepared for that person to not be your friend anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you just gave those three, neutral and friend or family. All three of those are tough in their own way, because if it's a friend, yeah, you've got past history, you know what I mean? You've got experiences beyond business, and then you start mixing business, and that gets weird. You know, family, definitely kind of same thing. Even if it's someone that you've never met before, it's like dating, you know, someone and then marrying them. It's like you have a honeymoon phase. You know, you're going to start a business with someone you don't really know.
Yeah.
Or even if you do feel like you know them pretty well, once you start involving business and money, things change big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and so many people, I think they feel like they have to have a partner. You know, they don't want to go at it alone. And that's almost kind of like a first thought for a lot of people. Like, you know, my buddy's, he's into this too. And like when I got into the real estate thing, you know, I had a business partner, and, you know, we were best of friends, you know, inseparable. And as soon as, you know, it was like, hey man, I put all this money up and you said you were going to pay me back to be 50-50 and you haven't, just everything goes downhill from there, you know? And that's like a glaring issue, obviously, but, and a pretty immediate one, but
you also maybe gave that person a little more grace than they deserved, right?
Yeah.
You didn't approach it as like, we got an arm's like business relationship. You have responsibilities that are clearly outlined on paper. Like you're not fulfilling those, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, so yeah, I mean, no matter what, a business partnership, like any relationship, but beyond friendship, it's business partnerships, I think, are probably in between friendships and marriages, you know?
Nick would say a friendly business relationship. Business friends. We're business friends,
Right,
you know?
right. So,
like you like the person enough that you like are okay to be around them. And
yeah,
like we'll go get a drink sometimes, smoke a cigar, like we'll go play pickleball together. But most evenings, you're not like, I'm going to call Dan and we're going to go out for drinks. You're like, that's a friend. This is my bit. Because eventually after 9 to 5, and I struggle with this, right? Because I have friends that work here at the company. I have family members that work at the company. We've hired a lot of people that we trust. You know, it's not to say it's a good or bad strategy. It's just what we've done. It has benefits, it has downsides. But, you know, at 6 o'clock, sometimes they don't want to see me. Like they saw me at 8:30 and they saw me all through the day. And then I did their performance review at 3 o'clock. And then like after work, you're like, you want to go get a drink? They're like, no, I don't want to like see you anymore.
No, my cousin actually, who's been like a brother to me my whole life, is, you know, one of my top sales guys. And I feel bad sometimes because he's like, hey, you know, what are you doing tonight, man? You want to go watch the game and grill some steaks? I'm like, dude, I just spent 8 hours with you. No.
Yeah.
You know, no offense. I love you to death. You know, I love hanging out with you, but no, I can't, man. I've been with you all day. And we've been like, you know, there's some days, you know, there's that just, that aura of like, you know, maybe things are, you know, stressful or whatever it may be. And it's hard to shut that off, you know, but yeah, we do pretty well with it. And I'm sure, you know, with you and your the family and friend ties here, you guys have made it, you know, a long time. Usually those things kind of blow up pretty quickly if they're going to.
I think it takes a mature individual to kind of put it to the side. But yeah, I mean, there is that dynamic that when me and my brother go on like a 6-hour car ride, like 3 hours, and we're like, all right, we got to stop talking about business. You know, we got to stop talking about the employees. You know, it's hard.
Consumes everything. It changes, you know, it changes the relationship. And I think a lot of people, I know myself, like, and I feel like you and I have talked about this before, like I can talk to anybody about business. I can talk to anybody about, because I'm so passionate about it. But like, you start talking to me about other stuff and I start to like, can we start talking about business again, you know? And it's especially if you work with them all day, it's like, okay, we can't talk about business the whole time. So,
well, we have that in common, right? Because we both have similar challenges, you know? So there might be a challenge that I've kind of overcome that you say, oh, I'm struggling with like, how do I pick a marketing agency? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I did this thing, you know? And before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole and you're not talking about like, are the Bengals going to win this weekend? You know, you're just talking about stuff that you can relate to, which a lot of it is business. And yeah, I mean, as far as like hiring friends and family go, you know, the biggest piece of advice I can give, and I said it once, I'll say it again, is be prepared for that person to no longer be your friend.
Yeah.
Right? Like you want to hire your brother, like you need to understand that you may have a falling out with that person.
Yeah.
And be like, I don't talk to my
It's
brother anymore.
the
Are you
biggest-
willing to do that?
Yeah.
You know, and maybe some people are, maybe some people aren't, you know, but I think that mentality going in is the right mentality to have. And if you don't have that, you're going in naive and blind.
Yeah. My wife is my current business partner. You know, I mean,
It
she
definitely makes it tough.
She handles, you know, all of our, you know, kind of clerical stuff and invoicing and paying every, you know, payroll and everything. And like, we do not fight very often, but when we do, it's almost always business related. It's almost always like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, you know, and she kind of plays the devil's advocate. And I go, whoa, what are you shooting me down for, you know? And it's like, man, it's tough. You know, it's no matter who your business partner is, or I mean, shoot, your wife might not even be your business partner. She just knows about the business, and you talk, you know, and you guys talk about it, and that can lead, you know, I mean, business is stressful and money, and I mean, yeah, it's if you have a successful long-term business partnership, I mean, that's no matter what. I mean, that's really just as impressive. You know, my grandparents have been together for 68 years. So it's like, holy crap, that's impressive. It's like just like a business partnership. Like if you've had a true successful business partnership for like what 10 years now, like that's impressive, man. That took both of you. You know, it took the whole like kind of unconditional love thing that, you know, you talk about in a marriage, where like, hey, you know, things have gotten tough. There's no doubt about it. You've had disagreements. I'm sure there's been times where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna screw this. I'm gonna, you know, screw this. Buy me out. I'm out of here. Whatever it may be. So to be able to see that through, you know, is I think up there with being part of a successful marriage. It takes commitment and it takes problem solving and it takes patience, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm 9 years and 1 day into this business with 50-50 business partners.
That's
You know, another
okay.
piece of advice out there is if you do a business partnership, like I've heard it said, and I didn't do this because I didn't hear this piece of advice when I started this company, but go 59-41.
Yeah.
You know, or 51-49.
Someone
you know,
to have that.
Yeah. Just like,
Yeah.
hey, it's your business. Cool. You know, because then when you go in knowing that, you're like, hey, man, you're making the decisions.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
Win or lose.
the money is
Yep.
pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You know,
That's very
but
smart.
You're making the decisions, man. So the best transition plan I ever heard was a girl that I was dating. Her family had a really successful nursery, not a child nursery, a plant nursery. And her grandfather owned it and sold it to her dad over 10 years. And every year, 10% would change hands.
So he eased into that.
But on that year 5, they went 51-49. They were like, we're not going to do the 50-50 thing, even for a year.
Yep.
You know, we're going to like slowly transition it out.
That's smart.
And I was like, wow, that's really good. Now that's 10 years, you know, that's a long-term plan, but you know, father, son, you can do that.
Well, just back to, again, correlating that to a marriage. It's like, you know, most marriages, like, you know, one of them is the decision maker. One of them wears the pants. You know what I mean? It's, yeah, setting that right off the bat, I'm sure would be extremely helpful. And yes, if I ever get into something else that needs a business partner, I think that would be sound advice to, you know, one way or the other. Either you're the decision maker at the end of the day or I am. Because, yeah, once you're half and half and there's really no ground to stand on, you know, then you're just bickering.
Yeah. So 2016, you come on board. In 2019, I buy out the partner. And it wasn't long thereafter that you and I agreed that, hey, look, you're the guy who should be, you know, managing this system. So 2020, 2021 or so.
And I think even then, I mean, I think we had a conversation of you like staying on board because, I mean, you and I thought always, you know, I mean, to say it, you know, I think if I could think of anyone in the world that I'd say, you know what, yeah, I could be business partners with him and, you know, I don't think it would end up in disaster. It would be you.
Well, I certainly think I'm great and reasonable, you know, but
so I think,
don't speak to my past business partners and ask them, you know.
I think, I think at that time, I think we, you know, at least I know in my head, I had conversations of, you know, you staying on board in some capacity, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, it was, and I think it's worked out. I mean, it's worked out tremendously for both of us.
I think we're both doing what we're best at.
Yeah.
So what was life like transitioning from employee to business owner? Was it everything that you thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean, it, you know, at first I remember like looking for someone to help, and I was willing to like give up ownership and stuff, because even as confident as I was with everything, there was just this thing of like, man, can I handle this all by myself? Um, Thank God that didn't happen. Um, because yeah, I mean, but certainly even to this day, I mean, I'm nowhere. I mean, I think we're 2 or 3 years into it of sole ownership and being the captain. Man, it's so hard when you're just so wrapped up in everything day to day. And again, back to that, working on your business, not in it. When you're working in it, there's just no time to work on it, and it's hard to escape, that day to day and implement, certain things that you want to, and maybe learn new, better tax strategies, or whatever it may be. It's like, man, I just have to keep going and take care of the next customer, take care of the next customer, take care of our sales guys, take care of our office guy. Make it home at night and be dad and husband and go do it again the next day. So, yeah, I mean, I think realistically it was a pretty easy transition, because again, I kind of had good reins on everything to begin with. But I think even back to some of the struggles we had when we were all together was scaling and bringing in new people. And, that's something I still struggle with. We got a team of, four guys and myself. So we're certainly not, the biggest company in the world. But even now, like thinking like, okay, how do I go from that? How do we double that? How do we go from 4 to 8? How do we go from 4 million a year to 8? Is like daunting, especially again, when 5% of my time is working in the business, and very little time is left to kind of step back and see the bigger picture and go from there. But that's what we wait for the winters for. what we wait for the winters for a lot of times. When we can't put the roofs on, that's when we try to take some time to get better for the next year. And I think that's what we've been able to do. Is that first year was I pretty much just kept riding solo with myself, and maybe brought in a guy or two that maybe fizzled out. And then year 2 found, my cousin came on board, and he really took off with it. And then, year 3, I think, brought another guy on board who's really rocking and rolling. So it's like, okay, well, if I can I think that just back to growth in general, business or personal, whatever it may be, like you just want to grab it all right now.
Yeah.
Like I just want to do 10 million next year. And that can be paralyzing. It's almost like back to just starting a business in general. Like there's so much that would have to happen for that to take place. It's hard to tackle versus, my favorite new kind of thing. I don't know who the guy is that has it trademarked or whatever it is, but just 1% every day,
Yeah.
1%
1% every day is a lot.
Yeah. It's still a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can just tackle that one little thing and check it off your list and just get better the next day, get better the next week, and eventually you'll get better the next year. Man, it's I love what I do, and I love the guys that we have, and just like any relationship, it's some days are better than others, and I can certainly let the stressors and whatnot get the best of me. But man, if we can just take great care of our customers and truly offer them the most bang for their buck, when it comes to putting a roof on their house or siding or whatever it may be, and I can make a good living and my guys can make a good living, like I'm happy, and that's one thing that I struggled with, was like once I took over, it was like, okay, I got to blow this thing up. And like that was my goal for a long, long time. Got to blow this thing up, got to get 20 sales guys, got to be doing $20 million a year at some point. And to be honest, sitting here today, I don't even think I want that. And I think I've just come to terms with the fact that, like, what, I don't think I'm one of those guys that is like, just like I'm big time CEO, I'm just a guy that, I'm a leader, I'm a problem solver, but I think my best fit is just kind of on a smaller scale. you know, like I've tried, you know, hiring a bunch of people, and I couldn't handle it, you know, and I'm sure, you know, a lot of it just comes down, I didn't have the right systems in place and whatever it may be. But you know, I think, and all these, you know, gurus online and podcasts you listen to and whatnot, it's like, how are you going to take over the world? You know, how are we taking over the world? This is how I took over the world. I don't want to take over the world. You know, I really don't. I want to take over my world. You know, I want to be a leader for my family. I want my son to have a great life. I want my wife to have, you know, a very comfortable and great life. And I want my people to have a great life that work for me. And I want my customers to, when they talk about my company, you know, and tell their friends and family, like they feel like they know us and they trust us. And, which is like kind of the other part that I feel like you lose when you become a certain size is, you know, if we became a certain size, like I'm not going out and meeting our customers anymore. And I want to do that, you know? And I think our industry also just isn't exactly built for that. You know, like in our industry locally, we've got the Feasels and the Ables, and, you know, they're big, you know, yeah, they do, I don't know, $50 million a year plus, I'm sure. But, you know, again, I don't know that you know, those are exceptions. You know, most of us are out here, and that, you know, some of the smaller guys are 1, 2, 3 million a year, and 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. You know, that's where I'm happy. That's where I feel like we can maybe make the most. I don't know if it's the most impact, but not every industry is built for that. You know, CEO type that isn't really hands on, and I feel like we are. You know, like in our industry right now, there's a lot of private equity trying to get into it. I mean, shoot, they're talking about like Amazon getting into roofing. I don't know how that would work, but I'm sure they'd figure it out.
They have their like home services thing.
Yeah, like home advice. There was Angie's or something, and they have roofing now. But I just keep coming back to our customers, and it's like they want to meet face to face with just a normal guy,
a real person.
Yeah. Like never are you going to get on Amazon and order a roof. You're just not.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll have like robots that come out someday and put your roof on or something. And who knows with AI nowadays, what's even possible. But
yeah.
I just feel like the home service industry in general, you just like, you want someone that you know and trust and can meet face to face and talk to talk through your problems. And that's just like a big side of the home service industry too, is issues come up. You know, you tear into a roof and you didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And you want someone on site that can make decisions quickly and get you put back in good shape. So, and I feel like the level that we're at is, you know, that's doable. So,
well, a couple of things I would say about that. One, I love this anecdote from Dave Chappelle. He was, I think, on a talk show, and this was, you know, multiple years after he turned that in that $50 million deal. You remember that?
Yeah.
You know, he went to Africa, and they're like, oh, he's gone crazy because he turned down this $50 million deal. And the host was like, so how did you feel after you turned down $50 million? And like the audience laughs. They're like, ha, 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 like this fool, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you know, when I go to a steakhouse and I order food, I look around and the people in there are eating the same food that I'm eating. You know, like I can afford this. Like I can have this thing. And he's like, would my life be better if I had $50 million? He's like, look, it'd be like slightly more comfortable, but would it actually be better? He's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Like I did what I wanted to do.
More money, more problems.
Yeah. So, I mean, at some capacity, you don't have to like, you know, take it to the next level, you know? The second thing that I would say, and I wrote down, and this was something that someone else told me, and it makes total sense, is because I was talking about like, look, I don't really like being on Instagram. I don't like being on Twitter. You know, I don't like, you know, getting out on social media. I know I should probably post more and post our content here at the podcast and so on, but it's just not really for me. And they said, well, you know Alex Hormozy, right? And I'm like, yeah, he's a popular podcaster, has a ton of content out there. And he had that same idea. And he was told by one of his mentors, like, look, you say that you want to help people, but in order to help these people, you have to put out this content. So you gaining like followership and views and things like that is directly proportional to the amount of people that you can help.
Yeah.
Right? So like you want to help people when it comes to roofing. The best way to do that is to sell more, you know?
Yeah,
like
for
at some capacity is that paradox of like the more people, like if I truly, you talked about confidence, you talked about believing in the product. I know you do. If you want to help more people, you have to sell to more people,
That's
right?
true.
So it's like, okay. So like these opposing things are like kind of fighting themselves. Like I don't need to be like the biggest company in the world, but like if I truly believe in my service and I think that it is better than like other people out there, then I need to be the person who gets that business, right?
Yeah.
Because someone said else to me that if you don't put the content out, Alex, someone else is going to put the content out who isn't as genuine as you.
That's true.
And who doesn't as care as much as you.
That's true.
And who like isn't as knowledgeable as you. And they were talking about Amazon specifically. They were like, look, you actually know what you're talking about. You're going to do 100 million in total sales through the life of the company this year. There are people out there who've done like tens of thousands and they have like infomercials out there about how to sell on Amazon. Like you need to get out ahead of these people, Alex, because you're legit. There are people who are more legit, you know, but you're legit, genuine. You know what you're talking about. You need to speak to these people because if you don't, like the BS will kind of fill up the void, right?
Man, I like that. I really like that. I'm thinking in my head right now, like, yeah.
And then the last thing I wrote down is a quote that I love. And this was from a company that decided not to work with our service. Yeah. And I was like pissed when it happened. I'm like, F these guys, forget these guys. They don't know what they're doing. But I follow their social media and I follow their CEO. And he's a smart guy. He's a genuine guy. He's done very well for himself. And he posted this quote like, what got us here isn't going to get us to where we're going. So you talk about like, you know, I got sales guys, you know, and we're doing this certain thing. We're at 4 million. How do we get to 8 million? Like what got you here won't get you there.
That's very true.
Yeah. So like,
we have no choice but to,
there's a tendency of like, let's just keep doing the same thing that we're doing. You know what I mean? And you can see this,
which is dangerous too. I mean,
physical training, right? Like I love my mom, but she's like, I do an hour of cardio on the, elliptical every day. I'm like, Mom, you can't just do the same thing every day.
Yeah, your body,
like,
you're going to get used to it
exactly,
and stagnant.
Your body, you know, it accommodates. Louis Simmons would say it's the law of accommodation, you know? Like you're going to accommodate to that and then your body is going to become better at doing less effort to do that 1 hour, right? It's the same thing in business. If you got to 4 million and you're like, let's just keep doing this thing, it won't get you to 8 million because the business fundamentally changes over and over and over again. So, you know, for you, I'd say as you get to 8 million, you know, yes, there's that Dave Chappelle, like, is my life better if I'm doing 8 million versus 4 million versus 12 million versus 20 million, 100 million? Yeah. But also you want to help those people.
Yeah, if I can help more people in that process, I mean, that's going to help a lot more customers and a lot more people on our team. There's no doubt. Yeah, looking at it that way is certainly a breath of fresh air.
Well, Dan, man, I appreciate you coming on. You're a great friend of mine. You know, I'm glad that sometimes advice that I've given you has been beneficial. And let people know where they can find you. If you have socials, you want to check out Exterior Alliance, the Ohio Roofing Alliance.
Exterior Alliance is the name of our company. If you want to follow us on, you know, Instagram, my personal, I think it's Daniel Z Blanton. I don't post a whole lot, but if, you know, I got pics of my family and stuff on there, which is cool. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. And you know, I always say, man, I certainly would not be where I am today. You know, I think back when all of that stuff took place, anyone else in your position, you know, with a, you know, too big of an ego or whatever it would have been, you know, would have probably just shut the doors or something instead of what we did, which again worked out great for both of us. And, you know, the fact that we're still friends and, man, I really appreciate, your guidance and mentorship and I value it and, was happy to come here and I think we had a great conversation.
I appreciate it, bro. Let's go, smoke a cigar.
Let's
How about
do that.
it?
Yep. Yeah. Ready for that.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.